What is the chemtrails? What's the purpose of the chemtrails? Is it weather control experiments?
Yes. He says geoengineering or terraforming to save us from global warming.
There's certainly a difference in the way the clouds look. You know, if you look at some clouds that are way up high, or rather, you know, some trails from jets, it's like they dissipate. They're in the air like they always have been, and then as the plane is moving, you can actually see them dissipate. But then you have these other ones that, like, they linger and they spread out and they literally become clouds. In L.A., they're everywhere. You know, I don't know what that is. Honestly, I have not looked into it.
Well, the incredible thing is scientists that were outside the government did test it, did look at it. They said it's barium salts.
How did they test it? They went up in the air and scooped it up?
Yes, they used aircraft and also got ground samples. And they said this is barium salts, aluminum dioxide, weather modification, nuclei. They declassified some of it 5 years ago. I got Ben Livingston, the father of weather weapons, on. Then, 8 months ago, Poldrin, the White House science czar, gives a press conference and says, we've been studying it, and it's aluminum dioxide, barium salts. We're doing it to save you. And it turns out a guy got a Nobel Prize in '92 for developing it. But the point is, there's a giant weather modification program going on. They finally admit it, and it's no big deal.
That's pretty crazy.
Joe, in the last 5 minutes or so we have in this special transmission, I want to thank you for coming in. I know you're a guy that loves freedom and is against...
Who doesn't? Who hates freedom?
The globalists hate freedom.
No one's sitting around going, man, I hate freedom. Maybe prisoners that get institutionalized.
Well, the establishment doesn't like freedom.
They hate freedom.
They want to condition people, brainwash them, control them. Let's spend some time here on some lighter notes.
Okay.
Is Brock Lesnar ever going to fight Fedor?
Well, Brock Lesnar right now has mononucleosis. Brock Lesnar has not been able to train, and they've postponed his fight. He was supposed to be fighting Shane Carwin, and that was in November, and they had to postpone it to January. Now there's talk that they may have to postpone it even further if he can't train, because he's been really sick. He hasn't been able to train. And then Lesnar, or Shane Carwin, rather, had H1N1. He lost like 20 pounds due to the flu. So it's, you know, Brock's in a bad situation right now. There's a bunch of guys that have mono. I've heard it. My friend is one of the members of Jeremy Horn's gym. Jeremy Horn's a pretty famous MMA fighter, and at least 2 guys from his gym came down with mono. So
why?
It's spreading. You know, I think mono is it's an infectious disease, right? You can transmit it from person to person. And these guys, you know, when you're training, you're doing jiu-jitsu and wrestling with each other, that's a lot of sweating on each other, and you get each other's bugs, you know. That's why you never want to do jiu-jitsu with a guy who's got a cold, because you're going to get his cold. You sweat on each other, you know. I mean, it's kind of gross when you think about it.
I hear you're a pretty good jiu-jitsu guy.
I'm pretty good. I'm decent, you know. For guys who aren't good, I'm good.
Wasn't there some talk about you and fighting some movie star?
Yeah, it was Wesley Snipes, yeah. It was his idea, but he changed his mind. But I was training for it. I just thought, he doesn't know jiu-jitsu. If you don't know jiu-jitsu and someone grabs a hold of you, it's like, what are you going to do? You're going to just ad-lib your way out of this? I'm going to choke you. You don't know what you're doing. Jiu-jitsu is like a long process. It takes a long time to learn. And someone who really doesn't understand it, he has no knowledge of it at all. If you watch the early UFCs, you see how that goes. You know, Hoist Gracie gets on top of you and chokes you out. That's what happens. It's a very complex martial art. If you don't understand it, or at least have some defense, you're in a lot of trouble.
So it's more like chess versus...
Yeah. It's technique. It's technique and understanding of the positions. And most people just don't know what to do, and your natural instincts will betray you every time. If you don't know jiu-jitsu and someone does and you roll with them, every single time your natural instincts give you up. You don't realize that you're making mistakes. You don't know what you're defending against. You don't know what's coming. So you don't know how to put yourself in the right position, so you give up a position. And if you give up a position with a guy who knows jiu-jitsu, he's going to tap you out. It's just how it goes. It's a helpless feeling. When I first learned jiu-jitsu, starting out as like a white belt, I remember just getting dominated by guys where they would just crush you. They would just grab you, get on top of you, and choke you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it's a horribly helpless feeling. You know, Ari is getting pretty good now. Ari's a blue belt. And are you a blue belt yet? No? But he's tapped some people. You've tapped some people, right? He's been doing it for a couple years. But when Ari started out, not only was Ari, like, not doing any sports, he wasn't doing anything. He was smoking cigarettes, and he was just... You play basketball every now and then? How often? Once or twice a week, folks. Basketball. Okay, so he played a little basketball. But, you know, I mean, he went from no martial arts experience whatsoever to, you know, actually tapping guys out. Hung in there. I'm proud of him.
So it's really good for people for self-defense.
Yes, it's great for self-defense, and it's also great for exercise because it's really fun. It's interesting, you know. What's that?
If you're looking to rape.
Yeah, if you're looking to get good at rape, it's the best. Boy or girl, whatever you're trying to do. It's a fascinating sport. It's a fascinating martial art because it's a whole series of movements and it's never ending. Like me and a buddy of mine were just drilling a new move the other day, and we're talking about it. He's a brown belt. I'm a brown belt too, and he's like, it never ends. There's always a new move. There's a new sweep, and this new sweep that we were learning the other day is just this revolutionary new sweep. And everybody's like, man, how did I not see this before? But it's always been there. It's just the movements of people. When you have unlimited mobility with your body, you can move, especially if you're really flexible. You move your body in a certain way, and then you got 2 arms to attack, 2 legs to attack, and the neck. And there's so many different possibilities, so many different ways to attack someone. It's really like a kinetic game of chess. It really is.
Wow, that is, and a lot of people. A lot of people aren't looking for a fight, so they never train in any type of martial art.
But it's stupid.
But everybody should get their girls, their boys. Yes. Everybody should be trained to defend yourself.
Yes, it's always important to be the one who makes the decision whether or not you get hurt. You know, if some guy can just throttle you and you don't know how to defend yourself, you're in a terrible situation. You don't know how to defend yourself. You know, you could run into some nut, and some nut decides to beat you up. I mean, I've seen it happen before where guys just they're crying and they're begging and the guy's kicking them when they're down. Have you ever seen a situation like that?
Oh, yeah.
Horrible to watch a guy have his manhood taken away by someone just because he doesn't know how to defend himself. You know, and it's most of the time you're never going to run into that situation. Most of the time, if you hang out in good circles, you're going to live your life and not have to worry about it. But you might. You know, you might.
I don't know, man.
Should have zagged.
I grew up in Dallas. I don't know if it's still like that up there, but there are a lot of really bad people that like to get in fights.
There's a lot of people all over the country that are angry, man. There's people that have terrible jobs, and terrible relationships, and terrible upbringings, and they want to kick your ass. They don't care. They want to kick your ass, you know, and you got to be aware of those.
No, I was like a nice little kid when I was like 10, 11, 12, and kids that were like 5, 6 years older would beat me up.
Yeah,
and that ended up making me a little bit stronger. But it would have been great if somebody would have put me in something like jiu-jitsu way back then.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have learned how to just have knockdown dragouts with people.
You could still enjoy it now. You know, it's a great. How old are you now?
35.
35. Look, you still got time, man. You can train. You could learn. You can get good at it. And it's a fun thing to do for exercise. Because, you know, getting to the gym, just getting on the elliptical machine and lifting weights, it can get pretty tedious.
No, it does.